Hi, I'm Jen Sherrill, and I'm very happy to be here today, even in this limited capacity. Though I do find it ironic participating in a food and music conference while recovering from malaria. Food is not great sounding when you have malaria. But that being said, I am very happy to be here, and I propose that our next conference be music and malaria, perhaps. So hold on while I share screen and sound. Okay, here we are. All right. Welcome to my presentation around Ai's table, food and music as indices of home in the diasporic Indian kitchen. This paper is an ethnography of home and heart, sound, and taste. In the center of bustling Bangkok, a small woman works competently in her kitchen, her hands expertly rolling and shaping the day's rations of rotis. Arranged on her countertop in colorful display next to a pile of Thai chilies and fresh vegetables are the array of spices common in an Indian home, the masala. The balcony doors of her 9th floor apartment stand open, welcoming a gentle early evening cross breeze, along with the sounds and scents of a dynamic city. The far-off din of traffic mixes with the faint drone of 1,000 air conditioners, creating a constant sonic wallpaper upon which an astoundingly loud Hindi soap opera plays, forgotten on the living room television. Above the cacophony and unintentional calm polyphony, my mother-in-law, endearingly known as Ai, rolls her rotis and sings. Though my mother-in-law's name is Sandhya, we will refer to her primarily as Ai, which means mother in Marathi, as this is the title that she wears most proudly. Shortly after I married her son, I decided that I needed to know the recipes of his childhood and by default, the recipes of Ai's childhood. As I stepped into her kitchen, I unwittingly stepped into an unbroken lineage of oral cultural history, passed lovingly down from mother to daughter. Under Ai's watchful eye, I cut vegetables and seasoned dishes, embodying each recipe through touch, taste, smell, and even the specific sound of a boil. An ethnomusicologist by nature and questioning my role as an insider by marriage, I sought to transcribe and preserve Ai's recipes and experiences. I wanted to know more about her personal narrative 45 years prior, when she had been a new wife and a mother in a new country far from home. I sought to understand her empowering micro-practices of taste and sound, the daily rituals of sustenance through which Ai was the star of her own Bollywood story. I learned that in tandem, flavor and sound combined to create a familiar place setting at the Indian kitchen table of a young woman making a new home in Thailand in the 1970s. Through the songs and spices of Ai, I introduced my mother-in-law as a young woman, newly married and far from her family, and the powerful micro-practices of her kitchen that served as foundational connections to and performances of identity. Using the vehicle of her memories and the semiotic framework of American musicologist Thomas Torino, I explore how indices of sound and taste function in equal and complementary ways to evoke a powerful semiotic snowballing of emotions and memories, thus creating an audible and edible experience of home. My framework for this paper involves a discussion of semiotics. And though semiotics is often viewed suspiciously as it's extremely jargon-filled, semiotics, simply put, is really just the study of what symbols mean to us. An effective way to present and discuss Thomas Torino's application of Peircean semiotics to music is through an example of a familiar object, the pressure cooker. A pressure cooker is a common kitchen item in households of many cultures, and oftentimes users have heard anecdotal warning tales of that one occasion when the pressure cooker wasn't suitably attended, thus resulting in soup being scraped from the ceiling. Recently, when discussing the whistle of the pressure cooker with a Chilean colleague, she replied, "For me, that sound is the sound of home, with the smell of beans or lentils, garlic, oregano, and merkin," end quote. Tom Torino posed that, quote, "Indices are experienced as real because they are rooted often redundantly in one's own life experiences and, as memory, become the actual mortar of personal and social identity. When given indices are tied to the effective foundations of one's personal or communal life, home, family, childhood, a lover, war experiences, they have special potential for creating direct emotional effect," end quote. The semiotic power of the pressure cooker is multifaceted as the object signals an index through a combination of senses. As indices continue to take on new, often conflicting layers of meaning, semiotic snowballing occurs. The feel of the humid air emanating is reminiscent of being a young child holding a hand over the spray. The smell of the food is an index of anticipation for the meal to come. The sound of the whistle is evocative of being startled. And a combination of all of these lead us to a rich experiential index of semiotic snowballing. For Ai, the bittersweet yet comforting sound of the pressure cooker whistle reminds her of her late mother singing in the kitchen while preparing dinner. Additional terminology that I use in discussing Ai's connections to home through food and music include the term, quote, micropractices, referring to little things done in the kitchen, often communally. While ethnographer and historian Elizabeth Perez uses this term primarily to refer to the practices of preparing food for religious purposes, I contend that the process of preparing food for family consumption also falls under the umbrella of the micropractice. Perez also poses that, quote, the feminine, yet not entirely female, labor of cooking creates bonds of belonging, end quote. Razia Parveen, a migration studies researcher, stated, quote, recipes are one of the ways women not only claim power, but also tell their story, which then allows them to create communal bonds, end quote. Parveen also refers to recipes as forms of passed down maternal genealogy. For an example of an effective balancing act in writing a compelling personal ethnography, I look to ethnomusicologist Marisol Berrios Miranda and her book chapter, Musical Childhoods Across 3 Generations from Puerto Rico to the USA. Additionally, I use the chapter and article, Music as the Food of Longing in Ireland and Irish America by ethnomusicologist Sean Williams, as these two narratives closely tying food and music together. Finally, as musicologist Raul A. Fernandez used sabor to mean flavor, I occasionally use the term masala in a similar way. When my husband and I married in Bangkok, the wedding ceremony itself was infused with the nourishment of food and the life-giving quality of water as offering to the gods. As my husband poured ghee, which is clarified butter, into the sacred fire, the priest chanted ancient musical texts while asking for blessings on our union. We offered grains and popped corn to the sacred fire, and water was poured over our united hands. In addition, family and friends who were attending our wedding chatted, walked around greeting each other, and drank chai throughout the ceremony. The sense of cardamom from the chai mingled with the smell of flowery perfume, hairspray, and the smokiness of the food offerings to the sacred fire. Above all these scents, melodic chanting continued. Throughout the chaos of organizing the wedding and the ceremony itself, my new mother-in-law watched with pride and happiness as her son married his American bride in the same faith through which she had married and had her mother before her. 35 years prior to our wedding, when Ai and Baba had just walked the 7 sacred feras, marking them husband and wife, work prospects in India were not promising. Despite a lack of diplomatic relations between India and Thailand throughout the Cold War, Thai companies heavily recruited talent from India. My father-in-law took a job as an entry-level chemical engineer for a Thai firm outside of Bangkok, and in 1974, Ai set to work creating her new home for her and her husband, nearly 2,800 miles from her childhood home. In a family of oversized personalities, Ai has often stood back, her stories and experiences serving as a silent backdrop to the Indian identity of a family in diaspora. But as her daughter-in-law, I wanted to know more about her life as a young bride and as a mother far from her home in Indore, central India, and the efforts that she took to build a new life and family legacy in Thailand. In order to explore Ai's experience of maintaining a personal and cultural identity while building a new home in Thailand, Ai and I discussed three of her foundational recipes, pairing them with three of the songs that she had been singing in her kitchen for more than 3 decades. Now, much like a lead sheet in jazz, recipes from Ai infer a collective of insider knowledge, an ability to read a lead sheet like we see here. This implies a working knowledge of chord structure and improvisation. Similarly, Ai's recipes assume a depth of knowledge of ingredients, kitchen utensils, food, textures, and seasonings. Her oral instructions lack quantities or details on what to do with each ingredient. These details vary depending on the day, the spice level, the number of mouths to feed, the available ingredients, and any number of additional variables. For Ai and her mother before, each detail is unwritten and navigated through the daily creation and embodiment of each of the recipes. In choosing songs to pair with each recipe, Ai focused on melodies that were foundational to her adolescence and coming of age. Each song serves as an index of the time period in which she gained the confidence in her own kitchen and home. Now, roti. Roti is a small flatbread similar to tortilla, and the repetitive micropractice of rolling rotis is one of the first skills a young girl learns from her mother, as was the case for Ai. Multiple aspects of preparing rotis are semiotic indices, signifying a coming of age. The ownership of a rolling pin is indicative of a woman becoming the matriarch of her own home, and the simple ingredients belie the skill of expertly kneading and shaping the finished product. This is the hallmark of handed-down tradition, and the act of rolling and cooking rotis is daily embodied practice of identity. My hastily scribbled notes state, quote, durum atta flour, mix with a pinch of salt, water, and oil. Let sit for 10 to 15 minutes, put oil on top, roll out, fold over 2 times, put in a hot pan. Only through multiple experiential performances of the recipe are my own notes discernible, and clearly I need more practice. Because of the rhythmic physicality of rolling rotis, Ai chose an upbeat song that she often sang in the kitchen when she first arrived to Thailand. Interestingly, this song is a Sindhi Qawwali, in which it is a hymn sung to the Sufi saint Qalandar. Sufism is a branch of Islam, and though Ai is Hindu, the intoxicating beat, the joy of the melody, and the positive lyrics made the song a favorite for Ai. In addition, this song is still popular and sung on reality talent shows such as Saregama, the Indian version of The Voice. Though this was a popular folk melody among roving musicians of the Sindh province, it gained a wider appeal when recorded by the Bangladeshi playback singer Ruma Laila in 1982. And just to hear a little bit of it.
ओ लाल मेरी पत
So you can hear the catchiness. It's a great, and I cook to it now. So our second recipe is dal. This is a foundational recipe of Ai's kitchen. This includes tur dal, turmeric, mustard seed, oil, water, lime, coriander leaves, and sugar, and then sometimes ginger and green chili. As I mentioned above, the pressure cooker is a semiotic signifier of indexical snowballing. Dal is a simple lentil soup. This simple lentil soup is a staple of the Indian dinner table and requires the pressure cooker to soften and prepare the lentils. Similar to the rolling pin, the pressure cooker was a necessity for a kitchen matriarch, the sound of which provided the sonic wallpaper for meal preparation. Ai's dal recipe is indicative of transculturation in the contact zone of her kitchen, as traditional Indian spices have been replaced by the easily available Thai chili. In addition, when I first wrote down Ai's recipe 12 years ago, she indicated the use of ginger, yet ginger is absent in her recipe today. According to my transcription of Ai's instructions, quote, soak the dal half an hour, put in pressure cooker with enough water to cover, add turmeric and cook for 1 whistle and 5 additional minutes. Ai's instructions later said 3 whistles. Stop gas, mix up, add a little water, salt, mustard seed, Thai chili, add a small amount of sugar, lime, and coriander leaves, end quote. Now, in picking a song to pair with dal, Ai chose a love song made famous through the vehicle of a Bollywood movie in 1960. As Ai had been born in 1951, the soundtrack to the popular and tragic movie Chadvin Kachand was the soundtrack of Ai's early adolescence. The voice of the legendary playback singer Muhammad Rafi created a sense of nostalgia for those formative years, having the same semiotic effect as the sound of the pressure cooker. Each sound was a direct nostalgic index of home and safety.
चौदहवीं का चांद हो या आफताब हो जो भी हो तुम खुदा की कसम लाजवाब हो चौदहवीं का चांद हो
तुझं तर चांगलं जैन म्हणते तुझा आवाज खूप चांगला आहे.
Initially, rather than offering me a name of her song choice, let me pause that. I simply sang the familiar melody over the phone, causing my husband, who was nearby, to recall moments of her singing from his own childhood. The index of Ai's voice over the phone took my husband back to his childhood. And this is the original song. Here's a moment.
चौदहवीं का चांद हो या आफताब हो जो भी हो तुम खुदा की कसम लाजवाब हो.
Our third recipe, our final recipe, poha. This is poha, which is flattened rice, water, oil, mustard seeds, potato, red onions, peas, Thai chili, turmeric, chili powder, lime, coriander leaves, and salt. Poha is a much more personal choice of food, as it's typical of Maharashtrians who share the Indo-Aryan language of Marathi, a language similar to Hindi, but still unique. Likewise, poha is similar to other Indian foods, but the main ingredients of flattened rice is uniquely Maharashtrian. Poha is considered poor man's food. It's very simple, and it's usually made for breakfast. As poha is a humble dish, Ai is amused by my interest in how often I make poha in my home. For Ai, the micropractice of cooking poha is tied to the morning routine of waking and readying children for the school day. As per Ai's instructions, quote, heat oil, add mustard seeds, add red onion, peas, and Thai chili, add turmeric and chili powder, boil potato, add potato to pan, wet poha, pour off water, add to pan, mix well, squeeze lime, add coriander leaves. Though I presented a breakfast dish for her third recipe, she chose a lullaby as its musical counterpart, contending that while the song represents the intimacy of settling a child to sleep, the meal represents the nurturing practice of waking a child and providing sustenance. The combination of these two acts, the morning ritual of making poha and the evening ritual of singing a child to sleep, signify the daily cycle of motherhood. Nan Hikali Sonne Chali is from the Bollywood movie Sujata, which was progressive in 1959 for opposing caste prejudice. Ironically, the actress Nutan Samarth Bahal was voiced by the playback singer Geeta Dutt. And the child that Nutan's character sang to sleep in this lullaby scene was actually Geeta Dutt's young son. For Ai, singing this melody was an embodied practice of motherhood. In the 70s, in conclusion, Ai traveled far from the home of her birth, with her new husband taking with her a maternal repertoire of flavors paired with the melodies of her early childhood and adolescence. While setting up her new home in Thailand, Ai maintained a connection to her cultural identity through the micropractices of nourishing her family. The songs that she sang and the flavors she created carried both devotion to the family of her creation and nostalgia for the family of her birth. While discussing these choices with Ai, she demonstrated semiotic snowballing by simultaneously expressing joy, nostalgia, and sadness. As the masala of Ai's recipes become a part of my home, her memories become layered with mine and those of my husband. As I share her flavors and sing her songs, I'm creating new indices tied to the figure of a small woman with capable hands in a humid Bangkok kitchen. The sound of a pressure cooker's whistle, the scent of turmeric and chili, the lilt of a Bollywood lullaby all speak to performances of identity and indices of love and home. Thank you.